Day 2 of the trial started off weird. Not chaotic, not dramatic, just off. Diddy walked in wearing a crisp designer suit, surrounded by his legal dream team. On the surface, he looked confident. But if you paid attention to his face, something was different. His eyes kept darting around the room like he was expecting something, or someone. Security wasn't normal either. There were more guards. One stood right behind Diddy's chair, another by the aisle. That doesn't happen unless someone thinks there's about to be a problem. It was like they knew something was coming. Then Cassie entered. No entourage, no drama, just a simple black dress with a white collar. But she didn't walk in like a victim. She moved with quiet strength, surrounded by loyal friends who acted like personal bodyguards. The contrast couldn't be more obvious. Diddy had money on his side. Cassie had people. But the real tension, it was in the air. You could feel it. Prosecutors kept whispering, passing tablets, nodding like they'd just found something big. Diddy kept pulling out his phone, scrolling, locking the screen, then unlocking it again like a man who couldn't sit still. His lawyer even had to take it away at one point, and right before the judge walked in, Diddy's hand started shaking. But nobody in that courtroom knew what he had just seen, because while everyone was focused on Cassie, Justin Bieber had just changed the entire trial with a single post.
I am absolutely going to testify. I won't even say his name. He is an evil being, and it's going to pay.
I think that I was just, living in this shame, living in all this sort of stuff of my past, and I wasn't able to move on. It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they loved me and, just turn their back on you in a second.
Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time.
While everyone in the courtroom focused on Cassie, the real explosion was happening online. Out of nowhere, Justin Bieber dropped a statement on social media, and it hit like a nuclear bomb. No vague, sending prayers post. This was raw, personal, and direct. He called Cassie brave. He said he believed her, and then he got specific. Bieber described moments from years ago, industry parties where he saw Diddy grab Cassie's arm too hard, talk over her in interviews, and control her in ways that never sat right with him. He even admitted feeling guilty for not speaking up sooner. Attached to the post was an old photo of him and Cassie, smiling. But in her eyes, you could see something else, something off. His caption read, "I didn't see it then, but now it all makes sense. This wasn't a rumor. This was a first-hand witness. The global superstar Diddy once called his little brother, turning on him. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Bieber's 270 million followers saw it instantly. Reporters in the courtroom started whispering. Court assistants printed screenshots. Jurors looked confused. The energy in the building shifted. You could feel it. And when Diddy saw that post, he lost it. Because that post wasn't just a betrayal. It was evidence. From someone the whole world listens to.
I think the person that the you of then was on a path of self-destruction.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would have, for sure, 100%. Yeah. It would have been no bueno. It was bad. I don't know if I'd be alive for sure. It was dark. So I'm very, very grateful to have influences in my life that have played a huge part in me seeing their relationship with Jesus and their relationship with their wives and their relationship with their kids and saying that's what I want. But I want to definitely tell my story so that if that resonates to anybody, that they can hopefully. But yeah, just protecting those moments because people take for granted encounters and
Wow! I feel violated right now. Wow.
Lean into me again. You smell amazing. How old are you?
Thank you.
How old are you?
I'm 16. I'll be 17 in like 2 weeks.
I don't ever remember smelling that good at 16. Like that was bad.
Yeah.
Wow, look at your eyes. Look at what a beautiful...
Bieber turned 15, and it suddenly seemed that Hollywood was keen to almost initiate him. I think that's the right word. Like there was almost like this initiation that he needed to go through. So I want you to be now super uncomfortable and watch this video of an interaction between him and none other than Diddy. Take a listen.
Justin, you ever seen the movie For the Times of Their Lives, you know, where we hanging out and what we doing. We can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. You know, I have been given custody of him. You know, he signed to Usher. Signed to Usher. I had legal guardianship of Usher when you know he did his first album. I did Usher's first album. I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me. So and we gonna go full.
Young Justin Bieber, who was signed by Usher, involved with Scooter Braun. Now all of a sudden he's being put in the hands of Diddy, who, it is true, he became the legal guardian for Usher. You can look up all of the allegations of what Diddy did. The allegations are essentially that Diddy very much initiated Usher. As we are going through these lawsuits and Diddy is in prison, we are recognizing that everybody knew this was an open secret about what Diddy was doing. So it just begs the question, who allowed Justin Bieber to be in the presence of this man, knowing what he was up to, allegedly up to? That seems to be very clear.
The moment Diddy saw Bieber's post, everything changed. At first, it was just a twitch, his leg bouncing under the table, eyes locked on his phone. Then came the shaking hands. He tried to pick up a legal pad, but it slipped right out of his grip and hit the floor. His lawyer leaned in to calm him, whispered something, maybe tried to steady him. Diddy shoved him off. That polished, untouchable image he'd worn like armor for decades, gone. Then came the whisper. Diddy leaned back in his chair and muttered just loud enough for the front row to hear, "After everything I did for that kid, loyalty means nothing." His lawyer froze. Security started moving closer. The judge hadn't even called the court to order yet, but something was about to erupt. And just like that, he snapped. Diddy stood up fast. Too fast. The bailiff immediately stepped forward. This wasn't some harmless stretch. This was a man, boiling from the inside out. His jaw was clenched. His eyes were wild. And when his lawyer tried to guide him back down, Diddy shrugged him off again. Hard. "There will be consequences," he hissed. People in the front rows turned and stared. Some leaned back in their seats. The vibe had shifted completely. The courtroom hadn't even officially started yet, and already the defendant was spiraling. All because Justin Bieber, his former prodigy, had chosen a side. And Diddy knew exactly what that meant. The one person he never thought would turn on him, just did. And the world was watching.
From someone the whole world listens to.
Yeah. So, yeah. I just want to protect her, you know? I don't want her to lose it. I don't want her to, you know, go through anything I went through. I don't wish that upon anybody. So, yeah, if she ever needs me, just think about how young I was and so impressionable. And you have everybody telling me how awesome I am at all times, you know, and like.
Yeah. It's like taking a kid and putting a kid in a room full of nothing but sweets.
Right.
And just saying, I'll be back in 2 days.
Exactly. I just want people to understand, like, the psychology behind why I potentially could have problems in my life. So.
In time, let's talk about the fact that Combs' co-defendant in a civil case, a case, by the way, that accuses him and this co-defendant, another A-lister, of rape. This guy is once again slamming the attorney behind the case, insisting that he be sanctioned for allegedly not doing his job. We're talking, of course, about Sean Carter, better known as Jay-Z, once again calling out attorney Tony Busby, calling out his character, more specifically into question, claiming that the Texas attorney's filings have, quote, substantial. Now, we've talked about this before, but basically, a civil lawsuit was filed against Sean Combs on behalf of a Jane Doe who says that she was raped by Combs and another celebrity at a home after the Video Music Awards in 2000.
When the court finally came to order after the chaos, Cassie stepped onto the witness stand like a completely different woman. No fear, no hesitation. She looked the jury straight in the eyes and didn't flinch. Not once. And then she started talking. With surgical precision, Cassie described the nightmare she lived through. She spoke about how Diddy controlled who she could talk to, what rooms she was allowed in, what she could wear, even which male artist she wasn't allowed to speak to unless he was present. Justin Bieber was one of them. When I asked why, she said calmly, he told me not to question him. When I did anyway, he grabbed my arm at an after party and whispered that I'd regret it. Her voice didn't crack. Her hands didn't shake. but the courtroom did. And then came the receipts. Text messages from 2016, Diddy sending 17 messages in a row, demanding to know why Cassie hadn't answered. One read, "I need to know where you are every minute. That's the deal if you want to keep your career." People in the room gasped. The judge leaned forward. Even jurors looked visibly disturbed. One woman wiped her eyes. Then Cassie dropped the line that hit harder than anything else. "He told me nobody would believe me, that he could end anyone's career with a phone call. And I watched him do it." Each word was a dagger, and every detail she gave, dates, places, names, they all matched up. She even confirmed that after a brief conversation with Bieber at an industry party, Diddy pulled her aside and said, "Even Justin knows what happens to people who cross me." Now, Justin was crossing him, publicly, loudly, and everything Cassie said was falling perfectly into place. The courtroom had just heard the pattern. Now, they were about to see the proof. Just when everyone thought things couldn't get more intense, the prosecution brought out the knockout punch. Text messages, real ones, from Justin Bieber. The lead prosecutor walked to the center of the courtroom holding a folder and calmly said, "Your Honor, we'd like to present evidence that directly contradicts Mr. Combs' claim that Ms. Ventura fabricated these allegations recently." Then she connected her tablet to the courtroom screen, and boom, everyone saw it. Text messages from 2017. "Cassie, I don't know what to do anymore. He monitors everything. He said if I talk to anyone, he'll make sure I never work again." Bieber's response, "This isn't normal, Cass. What he's doing isn't okay. You need to talk to someone who can help." The courtroom went still. Jurors leaned forward. A court reporter actually stopped typing for a second, staring at the screen. And Diddy, he stood up so fast his chair screeched across the floor. His face was bright red, his fists clenched. His lawyer grabbed his arm and whispered, "Sean, don't do this." Too late. "This is all lies," Diddy yelled. "You know DMN well that's not what happened. Where's your loyalty after everything I did for you?" His voice echoed off the walls. The judge immediately slammed her gavel. "Mr. Combs, sit down immediately or I will have you removed." But Diddy wasn't finished. He pointed at the screen like it was poisoned. "Those are fake. That message is a setup. Justin never said that." Security closed in fast. One officer stood between Diddy and Cassie, while another positioned himself behind him. Reporters typed like their lives depended on it. Jurors looked shaken. A young man in the front row leaned away from Diddy like he didn't want to be near him. The judge called for a recess, but the damage was done. These texts didn't just support Cassie's story. They proved she was telling the truth, long before she ever went public. And Diddy's meltdown? That just made it easier to believe. That's your wine. Jury wasn't watching a mogul anymore. They were watching a man completely lose control.
18 years old, and I should mention he was signed by Usher to a label that was owned jointly by both Scooter Braun and Usher, and he was considered Usher's protege. He has been described Usher as his mentor. The Bieber, Justin Bieber, is continuing the purge. He has now moved to, his original mentor. So this is a very big story. And the reason why we should discuss this and we should not diminish what is happening, it's not celebrity drama. This is actually the fall of Babylon that we are witnessing, Hollywood Babylon, that is. He did an interview back in 2020 with Zane Lowe. I think this was on Apple Music. And he was speaking about another young artist that was coming up, Billie Eilish, and Eilish. And he was basically speaking about how he wanted to protect her because she was now another young person, a rising artist in the industry. And sort of out of nowhere, he became quite overcome with emotion. Take a listen.
Yeah, I definitely feel protective of her. It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second. So yeah, it's hard because I want her to know that, she can count on me. But at the end of the day, I'm never going to force myself to be in a relationship with her. It has to be natural, right? So I just kind of, let her do her thing. And if she ever needs me, I'm going to be here for her. But yeah, just protecting those moments because people take for granted.
I'm not even kidding. Watching that clip makes me emotional because he is saying so much without really saying anything. Protect Billie Eilish from what? From who?
When the jury was rushed out of the room, the judge didn't hesitate. She stood behind the bench, eyes locked on Diddy like a laser. And then came the words that crushed whatever ego he had left. Mr. Comey, this is a court of law, not a recording studio. You do not control what happens here. Her voice sliced through the room like a blade. No yelling, no theatrics, just pure authority. Then she laid down the law. Diddy was ordered to undergo a full psychiatric evaluation before the next court session. New security protocols were enforced. 2 guards would remain within arm's reach at all times. His legal team banned from speaking with him without a court officer present, and his phone confiscated indefinitely. The courtroom felt frozen. Reporters stared at one another like they couldn't believe what just happened. Even Diddy's legal team looked stunned. One lawyer whispered into his phone like he was calling for backup. Another scribbled notes with shaky hands. Their body language said it all. They knew their case had just taken a hit they might not recover from. Meanwhile, Diddy sat there breathing like he'd just run a marathon. The man who strutted into court that morning in a tailored suit now looked like he was barely keeping it together. And when the jury returned, something had shifted. One juror actually moved her chair away from the defense table. Another, who'd been smiling at Diddy on day 1, now refused to make eye contact. The young man who had leaned away earlier, he crossed his arms and didn't write a single note for the rest of the day. On the other side, the prosecution sat calm, composed, but satisfied. The lead prosecutor stacked her notes like a chess player who had just claimed checkmate. Her assistant even hid a smirk behind her hand. And Cassie, still a statue, still unmoved, still in control. This trial wasn't just about what happened behind closed doors anymore. Now it was about what the world just saw. And the image of Diddy breaking down in real time would be impossible to forget. When Diddy returned from recess, the man who walked in wasn't the same one who arrived that morning. Gone was the confident mogul in designer threads. In his place, a man unraveling, tie loosened, shoulders hunched, and eyes glued to the floor, like he couldn't even face the courtroom anymore. And the jury? They had already made up their minds. One juror, who had taken pages of notes all day, now sat stiff, pen untouched. Another, who'd smiled politely at Diddy on day 1, now sat with arms crossed, refusing to look his way. And juror number 8, once fully engaged, now leaned back in his chair like he'd seen everything he needed. The prosecution didn't have to say a word. Their strategy was clear. Let Diddy speak for himself. And that meltdown did more damage than any witness ever could. Meanwhile, security ramped up to the max. 2 officers flanked Diddy's chair, no longer pretending to be subtle. A third stood by the exit, hand on his belt, eyes fixed on him at all times. Even legal experts sitting in the gallery couldn't hide their reactions. One former federal prosecutor leaned over to a colleague and whispered, "He just lost the case right there." Cassie remained composed the entire time, back straight, hands folded, no tears, no emotion. She didn't even flinch during Diddy's outburst. She didn't need to, because the contrast said it all. While Diddy cracked under pressure, Cassie stood tall in truth. And outside that courtroom, the world was watching. Justin Bieber's post had triggered a storm that couldn't be contained. Other celebrities began to speak. Public opinion shifted overnight. Fans, journalists, and insiders alike realized what they were witnessing wasn't just a trial, it was the collapse of a legacy. Diddy had spent decades crafting a public image of power, style, and control. In just one day, he lost it all. And Bieber? He didn't just break his silence, he broke Hollywood's code of silence. Now the question is, who's next? Because that courtroom door is wide open, and more stars might be walking through it to speak out. This isn't over, not by a long shot. If Justin Bieber was brave enough to speak, who else is ready to come forward? Because once that silence breaks in Hollywood, the secrets don't just leak, they flood. We've only scratched the surface of what's happening behind the scenes in this case. And what we just witnessed in that courtroom, that was the moment the facade cracked. Now we're watching the whole house collapse. So stay locked in, because we're following every twist, every testimony, and every name that gets dragged into the light. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, because the next revelation, it could destroy everything.